pick up members as we go along.
Okay, very good. Welcome, everyone. I'll call the meeting of the Water Study Committee or Subcommittee on Water Policy together or to order. It is Monday morning, April 8th, and we do not have a quorum as of yet, but we will begin the process. We'll hold up approval of the March 11th meeting minutes until we have a quorum. Jim, why don't you sort of give an outline for our testifiers today as to how we'd like them to proceed?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Today we're going to have 3 presentations. These are presentations regarding bills that are still in process. So the ones that have been introduced, that have had a hearing and maybe making their way forward. So I think what we'll do at the beginning is just introduce all the speakers, and then we can begin the presentation. So with that, I think I'm going to I'll go through this screen as I see it and ask the speakers to introduce themselves, starting with Barb.
Thank you, Jim, and Mr. Chair and members. I'm Barbara Ockrey. I'm from Duluth, and I'm a member of the Duluth League of Women Voters Environmental Action Committee, also a subcommittee on SALT. Thank you.
And then Jane, you're the next person that I see.
Yes, I'm Jane Hovland. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Duluth, and I'm also on the Environmental Action Committee and the Subcommittee on SALT.
And Gretchen? You're muted.
I'm Gretchen Sable, and I'm with League of Women Voters Upper Mississippi River Region. We're a 5-state League of Women Voters group, but although I do live here in Minnesota, I'm in the Twin Cities. I'm kind of the big picture person here. I'm on the board for that group. Thank you.
And next, Robin.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Robin Dwight. I'm the president of the Upper Red Lake Area Association, and I am here representing the Keep It Clean Coalition, which is a statewide coalition.
And next, Dr. Fernandez.
Yes, I am Fabian Fernandez. I'm a nutrient management specialist at the University of Minnesota. I work in research and extension. And with me in the office is Bruce Montgomery. I don't know if Bruce, you want to introduce yourself? Okay. Representing Afric.
And we have a distinguished former member of this committee as the director, Barb Huberty. If you're on, can you say hello?
I can. Hello, everyone. I'm leaving the presentation to my co-committee people because I'm in the boonies in Indianapolis and I wasn't sure I'd have cell coverage. So it's nice to be reconnected with all of you, and hope you enjoy their presentation.
Okay, are you seeing my screen now?
No.
Yeah, why not? It's my screen, right? So. You have to share it with me? Yeah.
Jim, I can share my screen.
Okay, let's see. Hang on just a moment here. I think, okay. Okay, now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Good. With that, then Barb and Jane will begin, and Gretchen will begin with you.
Well, we're here today to talk about supporting limited liability for certified salt applicators in Minnesota. And I want to thank the committee and the commission and the chair for allowing us this brief presentation time. Next. Eclipse. Okay.
Oh, and you did. It worked. The Duluth League's Environmental Action Committee began by researching salt use and resulting chloride pollution. We learned that excess salt accumulates in soil, surface water, and groundwater, and that neither natural nor economically feasible treatment options exist for removal. Accumulated salt alters ecosystems, harming aquatic life and disrupting food chains. Salt damages infrastructure, which is why MnDOT currently uses alternatives to salt on our aerial lift bridge in Duluth. Next. Duluth has 44 streams, but we learned that only 10 are monitored for chloride. Of those 10, only 3 meet chloride standards. 3 are federally listed as impaired, and 4 are classified as at risk. Chester Creek, which forms the watershed where both Jane and I live, is one of those 4 at risk and was this year nominated for addition to the impaired list. As I'm sure you are aware, Duluth's economy, as well as the state's, depends on clean water. Next. We did discover and celebrate many excellent efforts Minnesota has made to reduce salt use. These include calibration and brining, experiments with salt alternatives, a statewide chloride management plan, stormwater best management practices, and smart salt training programs, which have been used for many professional groups within the state, as well as models for other states. Next. Another project which does a great job of addressing best salting practices is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit Program, better known as the MS4 program. This has improved products used, such as brine rather than rock salt, methods such as pre-wetting and sand salt mixes, and calibration equipment. However, as that map shows, MS4 is limited to urbanized areas with populations over 50,000. Next. Finally, organizations such as Clean Water Minnesota provide wise salt use guidelines to homeowners. We were especially impressed with safe scattering visuals, which would greatly reduce salt use compared to what we experienced in Duluth, even in this mild and droughty winter. Number 3 in this slide indicates that a 12-ounce coffee cup of salt can safely treat a 20-foot driveway. Next.
So the question is, what's missing? And what we're concerned about is the incentive that commercial salt applicators have to salt safely. And we know that we already have smart salting training. It's available, but not fully utilized. Barb and I actually took the course, and it was really informative. Another thing that's missing is contracts that pay by the job, not by the pound. So if I were a salter, I'd dump a lot of salt out if I were being paid by the pound. And then lastly, we have no liability protection from lawsuits for people who are trained and certified applicators. So there's really no reason to be trained or certified in Minnesota, unless your employer requires it. Next slide. So in our investigation, we discovered New Hampshire, and they've had a Green Snow Pro program for 10 years that trains and certifies professionals in salt reduction practices that have an emphasis on public safety and mitigate salt use. And the core of this Snow Pro training is limited liability against damages that arise from slip and fall situations on ice and snow, providing the person applying the salt is certified and keeps proper records. Over a period of 10 years, they've had I believe only 2 liability cases that have been filed and none that have made it to completion. So we've looked at, and they've helped us look at 10 years of New Hampshire data and litigation experience, and it really does look like a highly effective program. And I just wanted to say parenthetically, New Hampshire, one of the largest municipalities lost one of its wells to salt pollution. So it's a huge problem for infrastructure. So what we think is that Minnesota needs support in the legislature for a similar limited liability bill next session. Our reading is that it's probably not possible this session unless there's some sort of Hail Mary miracle happening. Next slide. So why would we support or ask you to support a limited liability bill? Well, it balances public safety and environmental protection. And what it has resulted in New Hampshire is greater efficiency of salting, improved environmental quality, and documentation of where salt is used and stored. And it has also resulted in decreased liability and decreased costs to property owners as well as municipalities. Next. Rechen.
Yeah, so the bigger picture is that chloride isn't just a problem in Duluth. We have 50 impairments for chloride statewide. Barb did a good job of showing the picture of where the MS4 program is active, and you can see that there was a lot of Minnesota certainly not covered by that. And so that's something that Minnesota can address. It's also a growing problem along the Mississippi. The Upper Mississippi River Basin Association did a study in 2020, came out with a report in 2023 showing that chloride was increasing basin-wide, and that the chloride concentrations in the Upper Mississippi have increased about a third between 1989 and more current times. And they identified road salting as the chief cause. I know from my work in the other states that the other states are watching Minnesota with this bill. Wisconsin had a similar bill that the governor vetoed. And so they're curious about what we're doing, and they would like to see us as an example. And certainly as a headwater state, it's important for us to keep it clean as it passes through here and heads on down the river. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Weber, I believe that concludes this presentation. Thank you to the presenters. This bill has been around, and I'll turn this back to you if we have some time for questions.
Very good. Members, are there, just scrolling through the list here, the Representative Scraa?
Yeah, I got a question, a couple of them. Why did the Wisconsin governor veto the bill?
He was concerned about the liability clause is what we're thinking. I don't know that, last I heard, they hadn't gotten a response from him to know why he had vetoed it.
Okay. The other comment is, New Hampshire has a population of 1.4 million. We have a population of 5.7 million. I know for a fact that the district that I represent is bigger than the state of New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. Just to put it into perspective, that's not including Duluth. So they have a lot of ideas, but will they work on the size difference? Can we get those ideas to work themselves out? Because I have friends that work for MnDOT, and MnDOT is, like you said, they are slowly trying to wean themselves off. And some of the workers are even saying, why aren't we putting more dirt down rather than salt? Because sometimes it makes more sense. But that's a whole different issue. But it does make a difference in the environment when we do use less salt. The other thing, the salt that comes into the port of Duluth, I believe it's by Pier D. Is that a majority of where it comes in? And is that the salt that gets distributed throughout the state? Are you aware?
I think Barb Huberty knows that because that's her area of influence these days.
Yeah, I actually don't know. It's a Compass Minerals facility, and they're a big salt provider, but I don't know the entire distribution area.
I also know that a lot comes up the river.
Ah, okay. All right. Yeah, I just make a couple observations there, try to figure out what, and I'd be curious to why the governor vetoed it. Thank
So
you. Go ahead.
could I answer about the size?
Sure.
So we did an examination of all the municipal and state facilities that spread salt. And they seem to be doing a fairly good job. They have certified salters that work for them, and they have reduced salt. The limited liability program would look not only at municipalities, but also at private property managers who are so concerned about liability. I mean, the Barbs and I were around this winter looking at stuff. You can't believe the amount of salt that is just scattered by business owners or people who do parking lot management privately. So this would impact the private sector as well as continue to push for improvements publicly.
What, Senator, if I may?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See.
One of the things that Minnesotans historically are used to is bare pavement. We're used to sidewalks that are cleared. We're used to those sort of things. And if they're not anymore, then the odds of them wanting to go out and recreate or go out for dinner, go out and do their business might slow it down. It may not be as often. I'm not saying it's going to drive the economy, but it does make some people, some businesses might do a better job of the other one, and that's a reason they don't want to go to that business anymore, or that's the reason they want to go to a business anymore. So if we could find the alternate where it's fair to everyone around, and like you say, the liability issue, I think the use of that salt would go down. You know, what I mean is some business might say, oh, look, my competitor's not burying his sidewalk. I'm going to go throw a bunch of salt on mine. Look, come to me. My sidewalk's clear. Whereas the other one's trying to be responsible. So those are just observations I've seen. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Scraa. I would ask a question, the testifiers. In this process, have you visited with the Trial Lawyers Association?
No, not at this point.
I would say that that is probably a major obstacle to this bill. Anytime that we try to limit liability up here, they usually weigh in, and if I could make a recommendation, I would perhaps try to initiate discussion with them concerning their position on this and a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm. That's a great suggestion.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for the testifiers? I don't see any hands up. If I'm missing you, just please holler out. With that, I believe we now have a quorum present with the addition of another senator and another rep. And to my count, that means 7. Is that correct, Jim?
That's the way I count. The House has come through with an extra. So.
And so let's go to item number 2, approval of the March 11th minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion
Support.
has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried and the minutes are approved. Next,
and
we will-
Mr. Chair, Representative Jacob has also arrived. So.
Okay, very good. With that, we will turn to item number 4, update and support for the Keep It Clean initiative, Waste on the Ice. And we'll turn to Robin Dwight first, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Robin Dwight, I don't believe Mr. Hurst is here today. So.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman Stark, honorable members and attendees. Thank you for listening to me this morning. I'm here as the president of the Upper Red Lake Area Association and on behalf of the Keep It Clean Coalition. Every winter, hundreds of thousands of anglers head for the frozen water to fish. Most anglers clean up after themselves, but some don't. And it's their behavior that was the impetus for a new litter on ice law the Minnesota legislature passed earlier this year. That's a quote from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in 2023. So the Keep It Clean Coalition is the driving force behind our clean ice legislation, prohibiting the placement of garbage and human waste on or under the ice of state waters, with a $100 fine for offenders as the critical first part of protecting Minnesota's ice-covered waters from the leftovers of human activity. Representative Andrew Myers has chief authored our Keep It Clean programs/grants bill in the House File 3662, and Senator Eric Putnam has chief authored it in the Senate this session, Senate File 3957. We're very grateful to be working with Representative Myers, Senator Putnam, and many others on both sides of the aisle to create important legislation that will serve all Minnesotans and protect our state waters. Hard work of volunteers and with amazing partnerships, our coalition has attracted members representing thousands of lakes around the state, eager to take up the Keep It Clean challenge. We have developed education campaigns, participated in media events, shared free resources, and through grant funding and donations, we've provided signage and waste removal support at lake accesses. We have shown that our efforts are necessary, but our resources are limited. Minnesotans tell us they need infrastructure to handle the waste products of a growing ice camping and winter angling phenomenon. Although people and their pets can now camp and recreate for extended amounts of time on frozen waters all over the state, there is no clear direction for the use of the ice and very few options for safe and legal waste removal. I'm going to show you this. This is a very low-tech way to do this, and I apologize for that. Let's see if I can get my graph up here. Okay. So it's not liking it.
When you hold it rather low, we can see it now. So that's generally.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I had sent this file, but I guess. So I'm going to just tell you what the graph does. The graph clearly shows, and this was a graph that was given to us by DNR Fisheries. So it shows growing disparity between winter and summer anglers over time at Lake of the Woods. We presume the data is similar for other large destinations across the state, including Upper Red Lake and Mille Lacs Lake. As you can see, the popularity of winter angling is steadily increasing. And what the graph shows you is a spike, which is the solid line. And if you're really good at seeing this, the spike is going up very quickly. And with that comes problems. So according to DNR Creel survey data, there were about 65,000 trips to Upper Red Lake in 3 months of 2022 to 2023. There are over 80,000 trips in 2021 to 2022. Mille Lacs Lake and Lake of the Woods experienced similar numbers. That translated to over 6 million angler hours from December to February just on these 3 lakes alone. We believe a shelter and ice recreation program like the existing DNR boat and water safety program is the best way to teach the public the importance of caring for the environment and being safe during winter angling and recreation. We also recognize that small communities need incentives and opportunities to build and upgrade winterized human waste removal infrastructure, so visitors by the tens of thousands are not overwhelming local services. So we're asking that you recommend House File 3662, Senate File 3957 for final approval and passage into law this session, because we know that clean ice means clean water. And we pledge to help protect and preserve this valuable resource. So we're asking our legislators to join us. While all eyes are on Upper Red Lake, we want you to know that we're protecting the water and we're working very hard, as we always have, to care for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dwight. Mr. Stark, do you have an update of where these bills sit right now in the legislature as far as hearings?
Yes, I can get that to you. Both of these have been heard. And I just can't come up with where they sit right now, but they've both been heard.
Okay,
And I'll get that information out to the committee right after. the
okay,
meeting.
If I could help you with that, I did testify in a Senate committee about a month ago.
okay, very good. Thank you. With that then, let's turn to, I don't see any hands. Is there anyone that has a question? Okay, with that, we'll go to item number 5, update on the Afric Council, and we'll turn to, I believe, Mr. Fernandez.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I need 5 minutes at the end, so if we could end with questions by 10:35, we'll be able to be
Okay.
done.
Very good. Please proceed, Dr. Fernandez.
Thank you. So the next slide, please. So this is simply to say that these flyers are already were distributed in December by Bruce Montgomery from the Agriculture, Fertilizer Research and Education Council. The next slide, please. This is already at the governor's budget with a 5-year extension. It's already there, so this is just a quick reminder of that. And then the next slide. With all of the issues related to water quality, it's kind of really important in terms of what I have prepared today as a testimony. So with the next slide, I will quickly comment on 5 major reasons why Afric is important for Minnesota's agricultural, water, and environmental quality. Afric funded and supports a lot of different research to develop best management practices related to nutrient applications in agricultural fields. Last year alone, 64% of the projects were on nitrogen and water quality, and 36% were on other aspects of soil fertility, encompassing cover crops, precision agriculture, soil health, and nutrient cycling and management. Next, please. Nitrogen cycle processes are extremely complex, and the complexity actually increases several orders of magnitude when we add weather into the equation. And climate is changing in Minnesota. These changes, especially the distribution and intensity of precipitation and warmer falls and winters, like we saw this year, for instance, are making nitrogen management a lot more challenging than in the past. So with that, we need continuous research support from Afric to adapt to climate change and to investigate emerging technologies in agriculture that can actually help us improve crop production, while at the same time protect the environmental consequences and mitigating against the negative effects of climate change. Next. Research on nitrogen rates is only the tip of the iceberg. When we look at Afric-funded projects that allow farmers to have the best possible information to manage nitrogen correctly. In our research, we ask applied questions to answer real-world problems, and we also ask basic questions that allow us to understand the how and the why of complex nutrient cycling processes that impact the agriculture aspects as well as the environmental outcomes that we measure. So as depicted in this graph, our research has shown time and again that when farmers are using best management practices developed by the University of Minnesota, they become more profitable, and at the same time, they drastically reduce the environmental impact of agriculture, which is really and truly a win-win situation. Next, please. Afric also plays a pivotal role in education efforts. We produce podcast episodes, blog posts, videos, social media, conferences, and a lot more. Having up-to-date research information is only useful if it translates into usable knowledge and tools in the hands of those that ultimately implement this knowledge. We empower our clientele with the information they need to make the best possible decisions. Without this information, farmers and those that advise them would be left to make guesses on what might work. And that is never a good situation. This information not only helps them be more profitable, but also better stewards of the environment. For example, in the annual nitrogen conference that I organized last February, about a third of the talks were directly focused on protecting water quality through nutrient management. We also conducted an anonymous survey, and the response to the question, "What I learned at the conference will help me make better decisions to protect the environment," was responded by 100% of the farmers agree that that will be the case, and 78% of the responses agree or strongly agree to that statement by the agricultural professionals, educators, and consultants. Next. Afric funds allow us to have one of the best nutrient management teams in the country. And I know I'm biased, but it is true. It provides seed money that allows us to compete more favorable with federal grants and allow us to attract top-notch students from all over the world. We have critical need to train the next generation of agricultural professionals, such as you can see in this picture, Gabriel Payao. He is holding a canopy sensor to determine crop nutrient nitrogen management, crop nitrogen content, so that we can manage nitrogen more effectively and reduce the applications to what is actually needed. And Gabriel has graduated from my lab and is currently working in Minnesota for a company that evaluates farming practices to make farming more sustainable. Next. I think my time is up right now, but I hopefully left enough time for maybe a question or two. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. Are there any questions from the members? Dr. Fernandez, I have one. In the northern part of my Senate district and going north into west central Minnesota, the last couple of years have been drier years. I noticed that one screen you talked about wetter and warmer conditions, and yet we do have periods of drought as well. Can you just share with us what does your research show as far as a drier year, what that does with nitrate situation?
Yeah, it is. That's the reality is that we play with weather all the time and we have very little control over it. The challenge with the dry conditions, the good thing is that we have very little potential for nitrate leaching during the dry years. The challenge is that there could be an accumulation that then if we have a very wet spring, you could actually see an increase in losses during those wet years. So that's one of the realities of challenges that we have with nitrogen management.
So, but with the advent of cover crops, that would start to counteract that buildup at that point.
And that's certainly the case, and that's why these projects that we do with research are extremely valuable, because we are always doing research and we deal with the climate as it comes, with the weather conditions as they come. And so years like these last 3 years where we had really dry conditions has helped us to look at, these new practices. How are they helpful? What are the challenges with those practices? And how can they help us improve nutrient management, reducing environmental impacts of nitrogen?
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. I don't see any other hands up at this point. And so I thank you for your presentation, and we'll turn it now over to Mr. Stark, who has a couple of items he'd like input from the committee on.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you for being here, and I want to thank the speakers for their good presentations and for their timely and quick presentations. I do want to mention that there are a couple of testifiers who have written testimony on our website, so I would encourage all the members to go to the website and read those documents. We don't really have time to talk about those today, but excuse me, but I do want to talk a little bit about the interim and plans for the summer, and get your opinions on that. I don't know that we'll have time for you to discuss these as we have this hard stop, but I'll send these out to you in addition. And if you have any concerns about any of these ideas, please let me know. So the first one would be over the summer to prioritize water policy and management issues, to survey our stakeholders and the agencies about water policy and management needs, to hold some meetings to discuss and refine those, to develop a short list from that and to draft some bills related to water policy and management from that process. The second topic would involve meetings to review and propose some changes to the water appropriation allocation priorities. This topic comes to us from one of the members of the subcommittee, and it involves issues that were identified during the White Bear Lake litigation process. In that, there are some essential needs that may not and probably are not included as highest priority in the DNR's water allocation priority process. That would include schools, hospitals, for example. So I think there may be some minor changes that are needed to the appropriation bill language in order to make that language more clear. And we need a discussion with the DNR and stakeholders to bring that forward for the next session. The next one involves the drinking water issue. So the state agencies, as we all know, have been challenged to increase drinking water protection in southeastern Minnesota, mostly around the nitrate issues. This challenge came from environmental organizations and from the environmental protection agencies. The agencies are and have been addressing these problems through various programs by several of the agencies, the EQB, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, Clean Water Council, Minnesota Department of Ag and Health, the LCCMAR, and the MPCA. So these programs are complex, they're focused on specific goals, and sometimes are somewhat siloed. As a result of that challenge, the agencies this session are asking for increased funding to expand those programs. Responses from that has resulted in budgetary responses from the Clean Water Council, the governor, and the legislature, all setting forth plans to increase those efforts by the agencies. However, they're short-term and one-time in nature. So a long-term strategy is needed that considers not just southeastern Minnesota, but all of the state. So what I'm suggesting over the interim during the summer is to develop the whole process is very complicated, and to describe and produce a report that describes the agency's programs simply and easily, provides a simple and short summary of the issues, outlines challenges to drinking water by regions, and provides a platform for a long-term strategy and discussions in the fall that might lead to additional legislation. The second one involves environmental easements. So environmental and land easements continue to expand and protect and preserve our lands and waters. These easements are managed by many different organizations, and I think it's confusing. And I think we need just a short summary of these programs describing how these easement processes are put forward, the extent and combined impacts of them, and the number of acres that are involved in those environmental easements in the state, just to kind of put that all together in one place. And then finally, I'd like to propose that we have a field trip in the summertime to the upper Mississippi River Basin, focused on our most important lakes, protecting those lakes, which are also, they're very important to our fisheries. They're also extremely important as source water for the metro. Might be to the Brainerd area, likely 1 night, 2 days. I know you'll all be busy this summer, but I'd appreciate a go ahead from the committee on these things. I'll send these out to you if we have a few minutes maybe for questions. Otherwise, if you have any concerns about any of these, please let me know, and we just have a minute or two before our hard stop here. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn this back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Is anyone, I don't see any hands raised at this point.
Representative Scraa, Mr. Chair.
Representative Scraa, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with meeting this summer if we find a day. That doesn't bother me. A couple days. Get that one out of the way.
Yeah. And regarding okay, I just see we have planning our next meeting by Monday, May 13th. I assume, Mr. Stark, that you will be sending out that information shortly as far as priorities and ideas from the committee. My thinking is that when we get to May 13th, we're going to be somewhat in our home stretch as far as the legislative activities. And do you think it might be advisable to start the meeting at 9 in the morning rather than 10? Because if the Senate always goes into session at 11, and that if we need to have discussion on those priority lists, it might take more than that 45-minute window we're allowing ourselves right now.
Mr. Chair, that would be fine with me. I guess the 10 o'clock time sort of was planned to allow people to travel on Monday mornings, but if that works for the members.
That's true. But like I said, at that week is that's the final full week of legislative session. So I just thought we maybe might need to give ourselves a little extra time that morning, if that's okay with everyone.
Certainly works for me.
I don't see anyone jumping and hollering, so we'll let's plan on a 9 o'clock meeting that day. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments from the members of the committee, the time being now 10:45, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. Appreciate it.